Hello and welcome to another episode of the M42 Adventures podcast. I am your host, Rick Trimmer, and today we got a cool one. I don't know a lot about this guy or these guys. I'm only interviewing one of them, but this is Logan Petersen, and he has the Dad, Bods, and Beards podcast and movement, whatever you want to call it, and sounds amazing. Again, I don't know a lot about him, but we're going to jump into this. I know it's a couple years old. They are here in Utah, and we're going to jump into this conversation with Logan. Hope you enjoy it. So what's up, man? So yeah, just glad to have you on here. I got a little rundown from Chase, and kind of explained to me a little bit. I haven't done a lot of research, to be honest. I just got back from Alaska.
Oh, nice.
Yesterday, last night, or day before yesterday. And so, yeah, like you said, just trying to catch up with things. And but yeah, nice to meet you, man. Logan Petersen, right? With Dad, Bods, and Beards. Is that?
You got it.
So tell me. Basically, how old is this company? How long have you been doing this? A couple years? Is that what I read?
So we've been doing the podcast for 2 years, but we decided to make it a full-blown like men's mental health brand a little over a year ago. Like so an actual LLC and all that stuff.
Kind of pushed forward, kind of saw some. I wanted to talk a little bit about, do you know anything about M42 Adventures? Do you have any kind of knowledge?
Probably about as much of you as you of me.
So. Okay, so not much. So we're good, man. I appreciate that. So basically what we do here, do you know Ryan Mickler, since you're in the men's world?
I know the name. I've seen some of his stuff.
Okay, so yeah, he's a partner on this. So he helped me start this. He's kind of my mentor. We started this 18 months ago.
Nice.
And, and basically it's just trying to get people. So my background, a little bit about me was, I sold my construction company. I'm in the construction industry.
Oh, yeah.
And I sold that almost 9 years ago. So 2016, ended up selling that. And in 2017, I left with my wife and 2 kids, and we started traveling the world.
Oh, wow.
And like full time. So we've been to 75 countries. And I haven't worked in almost a decade now.
Holy cow.
And so, yeah, kind of a crazy story. I had lost everything in the recession. You know Trevor Farnes, right?
Oh, yeah. Super good buddy of mine.
Okay, so he's become a good friend of mine as well. He's been on the podcast. Oh, yeah. I just went to Hawaii with him for a week in June hunting.
That's where he's been. Yeah, so Mountain Ops is our primary sponsor for Dad.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, good dude, man. Trevor, just solid dude.
I think that Trevor's one of those guys that if you have a problem with Trevor, you're probably the problem.
100%.
You know, because he's such an all-around good dude, you know.
Dude, I was poking at him. You know, like I said, I had him on the podcast and we were in Hawaii. I met him through Ryan Mickler, got him on the podcast, kind of connected. And then we went out to Hawaii for a week. And, you know, I was just like, dude, is there anything you're not just good at? You are just, just a good person, good attitude.
I know. Yeah.
It's like, come on, man, show me a flaw, bro, you know?
Yeah, he's, I mean, and then on top of that, the dude's got biceps bigger than my head.
Yeah.
And he's just insanely humble. And
yeah, if that's if that's a version of a dad bod, I want that one, right? That's
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. So I think we kind of run around in the same circles, but basically, that's what we do. So Trevor came out to an M42 experience. We were in Hawaii. We take people all over the world. We took him to Africa, Costa Rica surfing, not just hunting, we just so Alaska, I took 16 people up to Alaska. And basically it's trying to get people this lifestyle that I've come to love of travel. And then I was traveling for about 6.5 years, 7 years maybe. And then Ryan Mickler called and invited me on one of his guys trips. Yeah. And I was like, I told my wife, we were actually supposed to go to Alaska the same dates, and it was a week before. And I says, hey, babe, do you care if I go hang out with Ryan? He's doing something. I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's networking with some cool people. And I hadn't really tried to grow my circle, you have your friends that you grow up with, which are awesome. Yeah. But I hadn't really tried to go out and expand into specific groups. And so I said, yes, I said, Ryan, I'm in. And I went and did that. And it just changed my life. You know, the aspect of travel and adventure with networking and connecting with, ours are for men and women. We took 22 people to Africa, families, kids.
Wow.
But it's basically trying to get people outside. And so when I saw what you guys are doing, I'm also interested in I want to go back a little bit. And kind of what made you, because I know what made me. I don't have to work, thankfully, gratefully.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this, we don't charge for memberships in our community. We charge for the experiences, the adventures,
Yeah.
because we incur a direct cost with that. But I'm genuinely trying to help people. I genuinely want to change people's lives and make a difference. And so what made you guys, you have a partner, what's his name?
Tyson.
So
Yeah.
what made you guys, what did you do before this, and is this a side hustle, I assume, or is this full time? Are you all in now, maybe?
Well, I'm all in.
Okay.
Tyson still has a full-time job. He's a contractor for the Air Force
Okay.
at Hill Air Force Base here in Utah.
Oh, you're in Utah?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I did not know that. I'm in St. George. You knew that?
Oh, yeah, I'm up in Saratoga Springs.
Okay.
So
yeah, my wife's from Kaysville.
I didn't know you're in St. George. Yeah, our studio is in Kaysville. I mean,
Awesome.
excuse me, or Centerville. Right.
Okay, cool.
Not
cool.
too far.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, no, I'm a little bit of a transplant. I've been living here for about 7 years from Sacramento area out in California. Okay. Chased work out here, but I've only known Tyson for just over 3 years.
Wow.
And he and I have became very, very quick friends, and have since, I'd say I'm closer to him than probably a brother.
That's amazing.
And it's funny, when he and I formed the LLC, we have like a little separate clause that if this ever comes between us, it's over. Like we're closing it down. It's not worth losing one of the best friendships I think I'll ever have.
I love that.
But so I don't know how far back or how deep you want to go, but I've been doing social media for a little over 4 years, and I started kind of post pandemic. I feel like I should have started during the pandemic and gotten millions of followers like everybody else.
Yeah, everybody's on the couch.
Yeah, so, and that kind of came as a little bit of a self-expression response thing to kind of find myself again and true happiness, because I have a pretty severe history of mental illness. I was diagnosed bipolar after some pretty dark years in 2017, was dealing with suicidal ideation and attempts and a lot of very dark moments that almost ended my life and ruined my relationship with my wife and my children and everything. And after getting the help that I needed, basically curbing my toxic masculinity and realizing I didn't have all the answers, and I was destroying everything that I was trying to build and everything that I loved, that I was able to get the help that I needed through psychiatry and therapy and medications and things like that, and kind of just start the process of getting out of my own way and realizing that I needed help, and that the way I was doing things was self-sabotaging, and it was destructive, and it was just toxic, and it was not conducive of a happy, fulfilling life. And so I spent years just pursuing anything and everything I could to help me just manage myself, manage my, realizing that this was not a, hey, go for a walk, eat better, things like that. That bipolar is a chemical imbalance, and a lot of times it's genetic, and there's not much you can do other than just, it's not trigger avoidance, it's trigger management. It's like things that keep me from, experiencing extremes. For a long time, I was, really, really reliant on medication. Since I've found a lot of great management skills and outlets for me to where I don't have to rely on medication as much, because I've learned to, recognize my triggers, recognize when things are going into these states of mind, and then having my healthy fallbacks, as opposed to, I battled addiction with Adderall for a number of years that I didn't realize I was addicted to, but I was using that as my crutch. But then at the same time was making everything worse. I was hallucinating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating. And then I was coping with food addiction as well. I ballooned up over 300 pounds because I was eating, 8,000 calories plus a day, and then ruining my finances because I was spending $40 a day on fast food. So just this massive destructive life where I just was not, I was so, inwardly self-focused that I didn't feel good. I wasn't enough. I wasn't providing enough for my family. I was failing at my sales job. I just, and it all kind of stacked up, and I finally had a mental break in October of 2017, and I blacked out, and I woke up a little over 3 miles away from where I was supposed to be.
Wow.
Had just before that, my wife had kind of handed me off to my parents to go home and my dad was going to take me to a psychiatry appointment in the morning because there'd been a lot of signs, and I was having quote demonic possessions, which was just hallucinogenic manic episodes. So there was a moment where my wife's like, "Hey, your dad's going to take you to a psychiatry appointment in the morning." So I was at my mom and dad's house. Mommy and daddy's house is a 27-year-old man with a pregnant wife and a daughter 45 minutes away. And I'm laying in my childhood bed in my bedroom, just feeling like the most broken, emasculated man, like at mommy and daddy's house because I can't hack it. Right. Mm. That's obviously not true in the sense that like, that's just what my brain was telling me at the time.
That was your reality.
Yeah. And it was snap at that point. And I woke up in a pharmacy parking lot 3 miles away from where I was supposed to be. In the middle of the night, phone was dead. Thankfully found a guy that was in the parking lot waiting for his wife to get off work. And we were the only ones in the parking lot. He let me use his phone, called my wife, and I immediately, like every other guy, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm okay. And then my wife, 5'2", gorgeous little blonde girl, is just like, "No, you're not." And put her foot down, obviously, in hysterical tears. And my mom came flying into the parking lot. My dad came flying in. The police came flying in, and just every hackle I had was on its. I'm just full alert. I'm in shock. I don't know where I am. I don't know how I got there. Long story short, that was a moment where I didn't realize I was going to meet one of the most impactful people I'd ever meet in my life, which was Officer Katie Cooley of the Elk Grove Police Department out in California. She helped save my life.
Oh, so this is when you were still in Sacramento this time.
Yeah, this was actually 2017, and she stepped in and I mean I'm a big guy, and the police show up and they get all these calls of there's an erratic man running down the wrong side of the road. I didn't realize this obviously what I was doing. I was running at cars. I think I was it was an attempt to be done, and they get these calls that this is happening. They're getting a call of a missing 27-year-old guy that's having mental health issues. And so they show up and I'm in a parking lot, erratic and frantic and all this stuff. And so there's a couple of guys that are being really authoritative, rightfully so. They don't know what's going on.
Right.
I don't respond well to that when I'm obviously even more so heightened, but Katie kind of came out of the woodwork, and she came up, and I don't remember everything exactly what she said, but she was able to get me to calm down and to just realize the gravity of the situation. And she's like, "Hey, if I take you in my car, I can slip you in through the back door at the emergency room. We don't have to march you through the front. We'll get you straight into a room. Nobody has to know what's going on." And as a man, it's funny is we act like we're so big and bad and tough, but the concept of this woman sneaking me through the back door of the emergency room so I could get the help I needed privately, that's what convinced me I was okay. I can get this help as long as nobody else sees. So that was all these concepts are things that when I finally got to a state of being clear-minded or a little bit more of a clear mind, I was able to, with the help of my wife and a psychiatrist, and like going all the way back to Katie helping me, in that situation, I realized that it was just a series of people attempting to help me, and I needed to get out of my own way. So that's kind of a big portion of my why. I wrote 3 different suicide letters to my wife. Wow. I held on to them for years. I just got rid of them a couple years ago, just as reminders of like, this is a guy I used to be, and this is what I used to think my path was. I almost left my children without their father, all of these dark feelings. And so I owed it to all of the people who showed up for me to show up for them. And so that's where a lot of my why came from. I started messing around on social media, started growing my beard out because it made me feel more masculine, and got back to just trying to be the guy that was fun and authentic and all of this stuff, and just finding versions of myself I didn't really know existed. And then I started being more vocal about, hey, on one of my birthday posts, because I always used to hate my birthday because I was a reminder that I'm here one more year when I almost wasn't. I opened up and basically told the world on TikTok, "Hey, I'm bipolar, and these are some of the things I deal with. This is some of my story." And the response I got was insane. People being like, "Wow, I've been following you for, a year, and I love your stuff, and you're so funny. I didn't realize you struggle with that. I do too." And all of this relatability, and it just hit me like, hey, it's time to stop using bipolar and mental illness and mental struggles and men's mental health as a crutch, and I need to start using it as a platform. for like you said, for like positive change and not monetization and all of that stuff. And it just was a snowball from there. Tyson, he owns a men's grooming company where we do, beard oils and all these other, grooming products for men. And he and I started doing some affiliate work because of the beard. Found out he lives in the Ogden area here in Utah. We connected, did a couple of YouTube live events discussing beard products, and we got these messages of like, you guys' banter and your guys' vibe is ridiculously funny. You should start a podcast. So like every other middle-aged white guy, we started a podcast, right?
Attaboy.
And we just intended to just be two buddies sitting down talking about being dads and fathers and just life and stuff. And bro, episode 2, heavy, super heavy. We started talking about, I mean, it's like the campfire, or the road trip conversations with your buddy. It goes from being funny to being, to being kind of dark and to being happy, and then to being like, hey, I'm struggling. And the response we got was just, giving men permission to talk about the things that for years we've been told don't. It's weak if you do. Shut up. Rub some dirt into it. Or, suck it up. Like, quit crying. Right. And realizing that, I mean, the men's suicide rate is 80% of all suicides a year. So we don't have it right. We aren't sucking it up. We aren't doing the right thing. And so we realize, like, hey, our relationship, just being friends, has done more for us as individuals and fathers and husbands than we realized just kind of existing as guys that were meant, we're here for our families. While we love our wives and we love our children and we love all that stuff, we realized we were missing this huge key factor of male camaraderie and brotherhood. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, hey, let's try to run with this, and we're gonna try to just impart this and give other guys permission to talk about it. Because Tyson's 6'3", former power lifter. Dude's huge. And then, I managed truck drivers, and I helped run a commercial excavation company for a long time. So, and he works at the Air Force Air Base. So we see toxic masculinity and big dudes and big tough guys everywhere. And so we thought, hey, we speak, dude, we speak I'm fine language, right? And I'm okay. And so we just started twisting this of, we're not experts, we're not therapists, we're not psychiatrists, or anything like that, but we're guys that have a lot of experience with mental struggles. And so we just started talking about it. And it's turned into this beautiful platform where we have men and women that listen in, and it's an insight of, men get permission to start talking about the things, and we get messages of like, hey man, I made my first therapy appointment today. And that's a huge win. And then we also sometimes get emails of, I'm done, I'm struggling, I don't know what else to do. I listen to you guys every single week, and I just feel like I'm stuck or I'm ready to be done. And those are crisis mode, where we've actually taken some suicide prevention and awareness trainings and things like that to be able to respond to people. And then we get messages from wives and girlfriends and sisters and mothers of like, I didn't realize that my guy was thinking like this. I didn't realize that these were actions that he may be taking because he's hurting on the inside. And so we're just try to break down the stigma, but at the same time, we do a lot of funny stuff, because if we can get someone to come in with humor, and then we like grab them with the funny humor stuff, and then we hit them with the hard stuff after that, it really brings people's walls down. So at the end of the day, in this long splurge I just went on,
I love it.
It's just trying to show people that, like, hey, whether you're following us on social media or we run into you literally at Walmart, we're trying to be the most authentic guys that we can, and we want you to feel that you're worth every ounce of effort that anybody's willing to put into you, and that then it all comes down to self-love. Like, I know that's such a trigger word for some men because they think it's so weak or emasculating. And then it's also trying to tap into that healthy side of masculinity of like, hey, now go do something about it. Go be the guy that's going to go fix your problems, and be humble and masculine enough to admit when you don't know. Because for me, it's a higher form of masculinity for a guy to be like, I'm not okay, I don't have the answers, but for the people that I love and that rely on me and count on me and want me to be here, I'm going to go do whatever it takes to make myself right. Because when you're happy, they're happy. And when they're happy, you're happy. And it's just, and vulnerability is this huge trigger word for men. And rightfully so, because there's been so many guys that it takes, on average, statistically speaking, one time for a man to open up to somebody, be shut down, and then the chances of him opening up again drop dramatically. So you share to your wife, you share to your girlfriend, you share to a friend or a brother or coworker, and they just and they're not equipped to handle it.
We're done.
You get slapped back in the face. Some guys, it gets used against them, all kinds of stuff. And they're like, well, I'm never doing that again. And so it turns into, I'm fine. I'm just tired. I picked up some extra hours at work. I haven't slept. I have a headache. I don't feel good. And if you've ever seen The Italian Job, there's a line in that movie and it says, I'm fine. That's our favorite.
Freaked
that's our
out,
favorite line.
Insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Thank you. Absolutely. Everybody, I always, you're the first person to ever finish that one. But yeah, that's literally men. We're freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional when we say we're fine. But we put on this stoic mask. And it's like, the joke is like masculinity. Like it's part of who we are.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there's a lot in that. That is, I mean, wow. Yeah. To summarize, that, because what we talked about a lot in M42 Adventures and stuff is, we have the adventures, we have all the, things we go and do outside, trying to get people off their screens, but we have the 4 pillars, right? So we have, do you know Seth Studley? Are you familiar with him? Seth Studley?
Yeah.
So he's a partner in M42 Adventures, actually. Yeah. And so he does our mental health, oh, wow. Oh, cool. He's the so inside of our community, like you said, I don't have all the answers. So when I started a community, it's not the top down, because I don't know about, not even just the outdoor aspect, but mental health. I don't know about that. I can get on here and say I regurgitate a book, but I've never experienced what you just went through, what you just told me. I've never, gratefully, thankfully, have gone through. But I want to listen to the people who have to learn, and so what we have is we have mentors inside of our community, and Seth Studley's one. Dan Petersen does our relationships, fitness, and then finances. And so,
we have Sean for spirituality.
Yeah, spirituality.
Well, and see, I love that, because and I didn't mean to cut you off because before I forget this thought, because I'm also ADHD, but
no, you're good. I have to write it down real quick.
I can't take the meds for it, so I kind of raw dogged it.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, that's where I have a little bit of a problem, and I'm not calling out any names or whatever, being on social media. I have a little bit of a problem of, like, the best way to be a man is you come to my seminar and you buy my course, and I'm going to tell you how to be just like me and my schmedium shirt, right? Like, I don't really vibe with that, because I've gleaned so much from the other people that have come into my life, and I have a life coach that I work with. So I love that concept. So
yeah, it's basically, that's how we do it. We have 11 mentors. We have 25 channels in there. A lot of them, again, we have a pro motorcycle racer who does our dirt bike channel and motorcycle channel. So
that's cool.
A lot of it's fun and stuff like that, but we also have the other aspect of these people who teach us about, because if your money's not in order, your fitness isn't in order, your mind's not in order, your relationships aren't in order, nobody's going to want to go hunting. Nobody's going to want to go fishing. You have to have somewhat. And like you said, I don't think we'll ever all have it all figured out.
No.
I get that a lot with, my life. Like I said, I retired 10 years ago, been traveling with my wife full time for the last almost decade. And people are like, oh, your life's perfect. I'm like, no, it is not. I still fight with my wife. We almost got divorced in New Zealand. I got a huge fight. I'm like, I'm out of here. I run and jump into the car. And I'm like, where am I going? I'm in New Zealand. It's like my wife and 2 kids. Like, I'm going to get on a plane and fly, 16 hours home as I go back in with my tail between my legs and, have to, like you said, sometimes being a man is asking for forgiveness or permission or, all these different things. And so, but you have something on there that I wanted to touch on, because it's in my notes for this podcast, and it's sayers and not doers, and I love that, because I think so much, especially these days, people, they're like, I had I've got still a handful of employees. I kept some ownership. And so they'll still come into my office when I'm around. And I had a guy come in about 6 months ago and says, hey man, you've inspired me, I'm changing my life. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? He says, I've read 300 books.
Holy cow.
And I'm like, whoa, well, cool. what have you done with that? And he's like, well, I've read 300 books. I'm like, what did you do with the books? And he's like, well, I'm reading. And I'm like, bro, you got to implement. You got to, like, are you reading on finances? Is your money situation better?
Yeah.
Are you reading?
It's like one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
And that was it. He literally came in bragging, and I'm like, dude, are your finances better? Are you more physically fit? You know, and he's like, no, you're missing the point, bro. I'm reading. And I'm like, okay, that's the start. But
yeah, it's the application of the information.
And so that's what I love with you guys. You know, because like you said, every, middle-aged man has a podcast, and I 100% agree with that. But the fact that you guys said, hey, I'm going to do this, you have, a story to tell, it is needed. I think that's the thing is these people need to hear this. And I love listening to people like you, like I said, with our mentors, we vet them so far. I mean, just so far, it's like, okay, did you, I don't care if you have a piece of paper from a college saying that, hey man, I know psychiatry. It's like, are you, maybe you're not because you're from, but I grew up LDS, Utah. It's pretty standard.
Yeah, I did. I haven't been for quite a while, but yeah.
Yeah, and me either. I haven't been to a church for a long time, but I still love their practices. I love their values, I should say, as far as, how you should live. But as far as the best bishops, right? I always say are the ones who, have been there. I've been to the bishops back in the day when I was a child, and it's like, hey man, I looked at porn, and he's like, the bishop that's never looked at porn was like, dude, you're bad. This is
or
the
one that never admitted
therapy.
that they did, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%, right? And so I actually had a brother-in-law who almost took his life because he wanted to go on a mission. He's in Kaysville. And he went to the bishop, and the bishop's like, you got problems. You've got, magazines under your bed. You are messed up. And he called my wife, and he's like, hey, sister, I'm going through some troubles. And I'm like, dude, it's okay. It's like, you're not crazy. You're not wild. And we walked him off that ledge, but it's like the best bishops are the best mentors, bishops, all these people are the ones who, for me, that have been there and know what it's like to stare, we've had on a couple lately that have dealt with some of this stuff, but there was the author, what was his name?
Adam Davis.
I don't know if you know him. He has a podcast as well, but he's written 11 books, but he talked about having the pistol in his mouth.
Yeah.
And, being at a wife and kids, being at a grocery store with the gun in his mouth. Maybe he'd gone out behind a grocery store.
I remember he was in a car. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in a car, and it's like, and then I had another one, Johans, what's his last name?
Bolden?
Boyden or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he said, same situation. He's like, dude, I was going to take my life, and I just had to mix it up. And he moved to Afghanistan.
Yep.
Wow.
Signed up with a, construction, what are they, the like security details.
Yeah.
Oh, like a private security contractor?
Yeah. Wow. And he's like, dude, he says, nothing I was doing was working. I didn't know what to do. So I just thought I'm going to try something totally different. Yeah. And now both of them have podcasts. They're amazing people. And I love to hear their stories because I could easily, like you said, with it's chemical. And a lot of the stuff that we go through, one thing about me, I have a low sex drive. That's something that I've always had a low sex drive. My girlfriend's all through, college. I'll say, sorry, mom. almost said high school. I was got in trouble. There.
Oh, that's good.
That's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Your mom's probably not part of your demographic,
that's
right?
Yeah. She might be the only one.
If my mom listened to my podcast, she probably would never.
You got some trouble.
Disown me. Yeah.
But so growing up, my girlfriend's always thought I was cheating on them, and I'm like, no, I don't. I was the guy who I'd literally fake asleep. I was the woman. I was the, quote unquote, the woman.
You had a headache?
Yeah, 100%, literally. And my wife came to me and she's like, hey, we got to get this figured out right in the beginning of our marriage. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And she says, go get your hormones tested. And I went in and they put me on, it wasn't testosterone, it was like HCG or something like that.
Human growth hormone.
Yeah, maybe that, HGC.
H.
And it was unbelievable because for 27 years of my life, well, we'll say the last 8 years of my life, where I knew what my libido was.
Yeah.
And was very aware of it and had lots of problems with it. I got this shot, stuck it in my leg, pushed it into my leg, and it was unbelievable not just having a high libido, but it made me look at my wife different. You know, it's a weird thing to say, and she hates for me to kind of
like
say
you
that.
unlocked an animalistic thing inside your
It was just,
brain?
it was like, I always told her when I first met her, she said, I knew I was going to marry you. And I'm like, I didn't have that. I didn't have that feeling, you know, like I thought you were nice, but I didn't. She closed the door, called her mom the second we met and said, I just met my future husband. And I didn't have that. I didn't have like that fire. And I never had really had it for a girl, really. I never had that like burning fire passion. And I put that in my leg and I was like, I want to hold your hand. It wasn't just all physical. It was like, I love you more. I love you more. That fire that you're like, it's like, you're my soulmate. And it was from a shot going into my leg because I got off it a year and a half later. And because I was like, I'm not going to do this forever. I can fix it, like you said, with diet or exercise or something, or compensate a little bit. But it was a very, very good thing for me to experience, to see how, you know, because you hear people that one of my aunts struggles with depression. And she's like, I don't know why. I just wake up and, you know, the sky feels gray, even if it's a blue sky.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? It's blue. Like, I've always had a pretty positive attitude, but it's like, when chemicals are involved, it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is it's like you said, like not trying to pretend like I'm an expert or whatever, but I've been a man living with bipolar for almost 8 years that I am aware of. But I mean, it goes all the way back to 19. I served a mission for the LDS Church, and I was hallucinating. Wow. I was hallucinating on my mission. But at the time, I was telling myself, well, I'm out here doing God's work, so of course the devil is going to be trying harder. That's why there's a dark figure sitting on the foot of my bed in the middle of the night telling me I should kill myself.
So
that's obviously that can make you
hallucinate, like that can go that deep to a hallucination.
So bipolar is a really scary one. It's not as scary as like schizophrenia or some of the other ones, but the thing is it's a spectrum, right? So it's basically a mood disorder, but also can lead to all kinds of stuff. If you look at kind of like the visual of like a pendulum, right? Of like human emotion and basically your cognitive ability when it comes to your brain. You have your typical range of emotions that most people will sit in, right? That they'll like in a typical day, like something, you know, you kind of just teeter back and forth between typical emotions. You have a little bit of a higher moment because of road rage or whatever. And then let's say that, tragedy happens. You're going to swing to that real dark side as somebody who's not dealing with any mental health struggles, because that is a typical, expected high emotion. But at the same time, on the other side of the spectrum, you got married, you had a baby, you got the job offer, you got that dream, client came through for your business. Other end of the spectrum, that's not going to happen every single day, but you have this like tingles, you're super elated, you feel like you can literally rule the world in those moments, and it's a release of these different chemicals. Well, with somebody who's bipolar, that pendulum becomes pretty much free game at any given moment. Sometimes you'll get stuck on one side for an extended period of time, and other times you'll go from one end to the other in a very short period of time. So it's this kind of sick joke. I don't know if I don't know where I stand with if we have a creator and everything like that. I've become more spiritual than since leaving religion.
Yeah,
and
me too.
I'm more of a I don't need to try to figure out all of these mysteries as to why or whatever. But for me, it was, there would be times of hallucination because of if you think about it, this is not slamming, the LDS Church or whatever. 19, never been outside of the house or whatever. And all of a sudden I'm in a different country in some of the most stressful situations of my life. And I am lonely. I am frustrated. I am trying to live a different lifestyle than I've ever lived before in my entire life, with all of the conveniences and comforts that I normally, and then plus I had a girlfriend of 2 years that I was, that all of a sudden I up and leave. And so depression hit me like a brick wall, and I didn't know what it was because my family that didn't really believe that stuff really existed, and
Shake it off.
Yeah. And then, I spoke to a couple people. I was on my mission, a couple of my senior leaders, and it was like, well, when you're, Elder Petersen, when you're out here doing the Lord's work, the adversary is going to try just as hard. And I'm like, oh, okay. Super trusting young guy. So the devil is real, and he's sitting on my bed every night telling me to kill myself. That messes with you psychologically.
Right.
And then I started sleepwalking, and then I started having, I would wake up in the middle of the street in my, in my boxers in the middle of the night. And I started to mask it because I got to be tough. I got to be strong. And then it was literally, I was told, put it out of your mind. So it kind of is just goes back to this toxic belief that men, we feel like we wear it as a badge of honor to push stuff down. Like, it's weird. Like, oh no, we wear it as this badge of honor that we don't have emotions. and my personal belief is that if men were not meant to be emotional creatures, we wouldn't have the capability of feeling emotions.
Yeah, good point.
Right? Like, if we were meant to be super stoic,
we wouldn't have
and
them in
not
our
have
quiver.
emotions.
Yeah.
Exactly. 100%. That's a perfect analogy. And yeah. So yeah, like I hid these hallucinations and all the way until, I was experiencing some up in, as after I got home from serving that mission, as I attempted to go to college, couldn't hack that because I was so depressed. I went for a semester and then didn't go back. And then I tried to do this. And all the meantime, I'm still experiencing parts of life that are happy and joyful. I met my wife and we dated and we got engaged and we got married. But the same side of that is bipolar. There would be times where I had the most amazing business idea in the entire world and no one could tell me. And there's actually there's a massive amount of multimillionaires and even billionaires that run massive corporations that are bipolar, because you have this like superpower of thinking outside this box of containment of like imagine your most productive time of your life and imagine you had the ability to get stuck there for like 3 months.
Yeah, right.
The stuff that you can get done is crazy. And so, and then I meet my wife, we get married, and like any, good, little LDS kids, we'd never lived together and never done anything together. And all of a sudden we're thrust into living together. And she's like, whoa, you've got something going on, dude. Like, cause she only saw me for X amount of hours a day. Now we're sleeping in the same bed. We're waking up together. We're going to bed together. She sees me only when I'm not at home. And she's like, you need to go to the doctor. I go to the doctor. And he's like, oh, you're ADHD. And I'm like, well, I kind of already knew that, but my mom never wanted to believe it, so I never got put on any medications. And this is my personal opinion. I know at some people it's great, but for me, Adderall is one of the most dangerous drugs I think that is out there, because it was the worst possible medication I could have been on, coming from my psychiatrist later on down the road, because it is medical grade meth. It literally says amphetamine salt. And this is, again, my personal opinion. I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe anything. Like this is based off of years of me taking it.
Right.
And it got to a point where basically my extreme manic sides, so it just gave him a megaphone. Like, it shot me all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and I was stuck there. And I would be driving in the car with my wife and our infant daughter in the back seat, and I would see, I'd see like a demon across the street standing on the corner, telling me horrible things about myself, and I could hear him inside my own head, but he's standing across the street, and I got my gorgeous, wife of 3 years sitting next to me, and I got a brand new 5-pound baby in the back seat that she is every bit of happiness I've ever could have imagined, and I'm sitting here, and this guy's telling me it's time to die. That I'm dragging them down, I'm dragging them down. And so that's one point. I tell you that story because I wanted to get to this point, is that there is this stigma that I will fight on this hill physically if I have to, but I cannot stand some of the men and how they view it as this, and women, this tough thing to talk so negatively about somebody who dies by suicide. Right? They act like it's, oh, they took the easy way out. Oh, they're just weak. Oh, they're like, and until you've been to that point, 90% of the men that I've talked to that have been to that point, that have either attempted, they've had suicidal ideation, or they made plans to and never followed through, or guys that I've met that have attempted and thankfully failed at it. Almost every single one of them, if it wasn't because I messed up so bad and I was, some of them have tried to run from a problem, most of them is because I feel like I'm a burden to those that I love. I feel like I am not good enough to be around for my wife. I feel like I am tearing my children's world apart. I feel so. The majority of the time,
how it happens.
The majority, exactly. The majority of the time, we feel like we are relieving the people we love of us because we feel like we are tearing them apart.
That's interesting because I do fall into that camp of, they're selfish. That's a selfish thing to do, which it is. It is.
Oh, 100% is a very selfish thing to do.
But it's very good to also hear the other side where it's like they didn't think they were being selfish. They thought that they were helping those people that they were bringing down. That's something for me to process because I've never had that thought.
And that's the thing is it is a very selfish thing to do because in that moment you are still operating in a level of pain that you are trying to escape, right? It is a double-edged sword. I'm relieving myself of this pain, but at the same time you have this
they're going to be grateful.
Exactly. Or like, wow. I mean, in my moment, I mean, you go to the point of I had a 45-minute commute to work.
It gives me cold chills. That's well, I don't like that, because
it's the reality of the situation.
That's
right?
reality. That makes it more, human and more, like, whoa, that's it just changes my whole view of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and there's religious views of like, well, you're going to hell, and in reality, yeah, and even coming down to the terminology of it of saying committed suicide, like it's not a crime. It's you don't commit cancer. You don't commit, someone dying
getting the flu.
Like or a diabetic coma or things like that. They died by suicide. Yes, they died by their own hand. But when you understand, the brain chemistry and you understand, the mental health aspect of it, you're judging someone off of a logical way of thinking that was in a very illogical mindset at the time, right? And so I have a really good friend that she lost her husband to suicide 5 or 6 years ago. And she since has become a huge men's mental health advocate. And one of her biggest messages is that, yes, he was selfish in that moment. And if I could go back and understand what he was going through, she's like, I would guilt the hell out of him to stay with me and our girls. She's like, but at the same time, I realized that he was battling with things that he never told me because he bottled them up for so long. He was never given permission. So the thing is we have this massive capacity as human beings and as men to feel all of these emotions. And sometimes it's chemical, but sometimes it's situational. Sometimes it's seasonal. And sometimes it just comes and goes as different things happen. So the biggest thing is we've got to give ourselves more grace to start. We've got to give ourselves the chance to love ourselves. And I know it's so hard, but when you think about it, when you're getting ready in the morning as men, we look in the mirror, but do you ever really look at yourself? Do you stare yourself in the eyes and say, hey man, I love you. You're trying your hardest. Or, hey man, we got to change some stuff because this is the beautiful part about masculinity. You have the emotional capability to feel love and empathy and joy and gladness and sadness and anger, all of these massive emotions. But then you also have this internal carnal drive to just get stuff done. And so we try to do both of those. I mean, like, I don't really subscribe. I love David Goggins because I've taken up running at times, but I don't subscribe to the calling yourself a little bitch all the time. And beating yourself up all the time because like self-deprecation, I use self-deprecating humor all the time because it's funny and relatable, but at the same time, there is a funny threshold and then there is an unhealthy threshold. And there's so much that exists in the male community of beating yourself up to get results that's not sustainable. And so I get guys all the time. I mean, I have I have a little over 1 million followers across all platforms. So I get all kinds of DMs especially when I talk about like maybe the softer side of masculinity, calling me all kinds of names, calling me a wuss. They call me way worse than that. And I say this funny, but also at the same time, very serious of you can call me whatever you want, but you can also call me when you're crying because I know what it's like to want to be done and to attempt to be done. And I look back at that time and I live with this massive amount of guilt and regret still to this day that I almost left my wife to live this life without me and the insurmountable guilt and pain she would have been left with and to leave my children without their father. And if that can be stopped because I can give a guy a chance to say, hey, I hear you and I see you and it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel broken. But now let's stop just talking about it. Let's keep talking about it. but let's take some action, because there is this level of hyper masculinity and hyper, vulnerability, and they constantly are clashing with each other. Super soft guys over here saying, oh, like masculinity is dead and yada, yada, yada. And then super, like I said, super medium alpha bros that are saying, oh, you shouldn't feel your emotions and all this stuff. There is this beautiful center point that I feel like we are trying to redefine masculinity as a point of kind of a sidetrack, but with the same point. One of my most favorite memories. I have a 9-year-old daughter who is more intelligent than I think she could have been with half of my genetics. And she came to me last year through some stuff she was dealing with in a little 8-year-old's brain at the time. She brought me her journal, and she wanted to read to me some stuff from her journal, how she was feeling. That may not sound like a lot, but to me, as a guy who used to be very unapproachable when it came to anger and frustration and just my overall presence of, oh, geez, dad's home and dad's angry because dad had a bad day at work, for her to feel comfortable and safe to share her feelings with me as her father, that to me is emotional intelligence and masculinity. That I'm like, okay, there is something that I have gleaned from my wife, that I have learned, that I am showing to my daughter, that this is what safety is. Not that dad could, throw some dude down the stairs that broke in the house in the middle of the night, which, don't get me wrong, I'm still waiting for that day and I am fully prepared.
Yeah,
right?
Me too.
But it's also, I'm safe with dad physically, but I'm also safe with dad emotionally.
I love that.
So that's where my whole message is that, like, you can do both.
Yeah.
You have the capability to do both. And it takes a while to get there, but once you get there, you think people feel safe with you, like, just physically. Wait till someone sits down with you and is like, hey man, I've been going through some stuff and I feel like you're the only guy I could talk to.
Yeah.
It makes you feel pretty good about what you're doing.
Yeah, I know a lot of marriages that have ended here in the last couple of years, and none specific, but I know that the wives a lot of times will say, my wife started a community course, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the women's version of Order Man. She started it with Ryan Mickler. It's called Revitalized Womanhood, and it's about, like you're talking about, it's like you can be a mother and you can be, all these different roles. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but talking about, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
Was it why they get divorced? Like,
yeah. So it was like she was saying how a lot of these wives that I hear, it's like, well, he was providing, he was giving us money, he was providing safety as far as physically, but there was that lack of trust. Like you're saying, that's a huge void in a lot of marriages, and even mine. I'll be honest, I am a guy where my wife will say, I didn't feel seen or heard or safe in that situation, and I'm like, well, I take you around the world and I've given you this life. And she's like, that's great. I love that. Thank you. But I also want to be able to come home and say, hey, this is why I had a bad day. And I want you to hear me and listen to me and not just try to fix it and just try to, hey, and I fall into that camp where I'll just be like, oh, that's not a big deal. That's not a big problem. But if it is to her, if it is to I remember my dad telling me, he had a construction company in Vegas. And he says, I remember sitting at the table trying to pay payroll and I couldn't make payroll. And I'm like, man, my world is going to end here. I'm in trouble. And he says, your little sister came walking in and her doll's arm had fallen off.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, Daddy, just sobbing, Daddy, my doll's arm's falling off. And he's like, whoa, this is her world. This is what it matters to her. She doesn't give a shit about, payroll.
Yeah.
And that's how I think if we could live, it's like, what are you going through? What do you need? This isn't a one size fits all.
Well, your level 10 may look different than my level 10, but there's still a level 10. And that's the thing, is that we live in this, guys act like, oh, women are so comparative. They worry about what all they're wearing and what they're doing, whatever. We compare the crap out of ourselves to everybody else and how much he's making, what truck he's driving, how big his house is he renting? Does he own it? Like, we are constantly emasculating ourselves because of other men. And I realize that this is almost so easier said than done, right? I'm like, oh, you just got to be more emotional. No. It's going to take time. And then especially as men, we're almost like, oh, I'm doing all of this. I'm working 60 hours a week. I'm doing all this. Like, I don't have time to this, or I don't know how to. I'm big on intentions, right? They say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I disagree. I think that if you're attempting to try, if you're just, or if you're wanting to, if you're seeking like greater knowledge, like, yeah, making the effort like that, like it was explained. Yeah. And it was explained to me recently. Like I said, I still go through my struggles. I was working with my brother for years, running between trucking company and then he owned an excavation company that I was the right-hand man, and that all fell apart and I lost my job in January. So I'm like, hey, I got to go full time with this side job and dream that I've had, and it hasn't been pretty, right? Like I can't tell everybody that, like, hey, I've got this nice truck that I like, but that payment hurts a hell of a lot more now than it did, 6 months ago, or things like that. But it comes down to, I have a coach that I work with, and he's a young 20-something-year-old guy, but he pushes me to do things I've never done as a 35-year-old man. And he recently explained to me that he's like, you're a mirror. He's like, what you want in your life. He's like, you have to, you don't go to the mirror and look in the mirror, and the reflection isn't showing you're presenting your reflection to the mirror, and it's showing you back what you're showing it. So while that kind of sounds convoluted, he's like, if you're coming home and you've had a bad day and you're angry or whatever, he's like, your wife can feel that. He's like, your kids can physically feel that. He's like, vibrations and frequencies is not some witchy woo-woo stuff. It is scientifically proven that you give off an energy based off of what you went through in the day and all of your level 10s, or it was a level 6, it was a level 5, whatever. And so you come home from having a good day, you're fine. But you come home from having a bad day, a lot of times you're like, oh, I had a bad day, or I had a rough day. And then you say something that, you're kind of spewing that vitriol at times, unintentional, and yet you hurt the kid, or you hurt your wife, feelings or things like that. And so he explained to me, like, there's all this pressure that we put on ourselves to fix and to do and to be and all that stuff. But it comes down to, like, how are you feeling about yourself? Because if you're beating yourself up over and over and over and never trying to actually change the things that you want and need to change, and make some positive improvements, you're just going to be that mirror is going to be reflecting exactly how you feel about yourself. And then you're going to go, and that reflection is going to be seen by everybody that you care about. And then you're going to feel, well, they don't understand me, they don't love me. It's because you don't understand and you don't love yourself.
Yeah.
And that's such a hard thing to do. And one of the biggest things that I started doing, and I know it's really hard, it is mirror work. Looking yourself in the mirror and giving yourself some positive affirmations of, like, dude, I know that you're trying, but we got to make these changes here. And one of the biggest changes that I made was something I said I was going to do for years and years and years. And next thing you know, I'm in my mid-30s. I was going to lose weight. I was going to eat healthier. And then it doesn't always come down to fitness, but I like what you said is one of the, when you think about how you're treating yourself, fitness and health is a huge part of it. And one of the biggest things I did was working with this coach was I started eating right, and I started taking care of my body, and I pushed myself to run a marathon. And I ran a marathon just this last year, and I've lost 60 pounds since I've started, and I feel so much better about myself. And my wife is like, she's like, you seem happier. You seem, and then on top of that, getting to cross the finish line with my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old holding my hands. It's when you take these actions to improve your life in a positive and healthy way. When we talk about brain chemistry, you are firing on all cylinders, and your body and your soul and your mind and everything is just like, yes, like this. We need to keep doing this. We need to keep chasing these positive improvements in our life, because in that moment, as I'm crossing the finish line, I'm like, wow, this is this huge improvement for me and myself. But then I get to mirror that and show my children, hey, look at something that dad committed to, and he did it, and he finished, and he worked. He trained hard for 9 months to be able to do this. And then my wife, who watched me say, I'm gonna do all these different things for years, when I go to her and say, I am gonna run a marathon, and her first thought was, yeah, okay, bud. And then she sees me train for it, and she sees me commit to it, and then she sees me do it.
Yeah.
Sharing a moment, like a hug with her at the end of the finish line.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah. You're rewriting, and that's what I think people don't realize is where you're at today does not define you. It's not, this isn't the finish line. And so you can, you know, you can change the perception of the people that they have about you if you go and, you know, I tell my kids all the time, my 13-year-old had a problem with lying a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And he'd just lie. He was probably afraid of me, you know, because I'm so dominant and, you know, all those things that I am. And I says, hey man, you can change this. You can do this. And he started telling the truth and I'm like, now I'm starting to say, hey, you know, you tell the truth. You're honest. I trust you. And it's cool to see because it's like, this wasn't, you know, we can all relate to what you're saying as far as what you're going through and what you're doing. And I just admire people like you who, you know, have, and you've been way further down than I ever have. And for you to climb out of that and to hear these stories, it gets me teary eyed. You know, it's like, man, the human element can be such a beautiful thing. It can be dark and scary and all those things, but at the same time, and then I relate heavily with kids. I've got 4 kids. I just had a little girl. She's 6 months old. We had 3 boys. Wow. Yeah. I'm 45 too, bro. So, but
good luck, man.
I know. We'll see. We'll see.
That's exciting, though.
It is cool, man. I love it. I go home now and I'm like, you know, it's changed my kids are everything for me and my wife and my family, but it's beautiful to see somebody that, and what I also love is your wife stuck with you. You know, that's a big deal. When I lost everything in the recession and we were homeless, she was 9 months pregnant. I literally went to her and I says, hey, you know, I've failed. I failed. I'm a broken man. And do you want to go? Do you want to leave? And asked her, and she says, what are you talking about? You know, I married you. I didn't marry your money. I'm here with you. And so what a beautiful thing to see somebody come out the other side and how inspiring, man. It's just, keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And that's there's a whole aspect to my story that I don't get into because it is not just mine. It is my wife's as well.
100%.
And one thing that, you know, in severe mental health or mental illness situations, especially in a marriage or things like that, there is a whole level of PTSD that ends up developing in the spouse when they watch all this stuff unfold. And my wife has had her own journey and she's still on it. And I want to kind of like, you know, kind of disclaimer of the thing is that you don't always have to have this massive origin story, right? You don't have to have these massive dark holes, or you don't have to run the marathon. And the reason I share those stories is that it was just moments in time where I realized that I chose, like, I was appropriate level of selfishness, that I chose myself. I chose to be better for myself so that I could then impart that betterness to my wife and to my children. And that realizing that whether it's running a marathon or like reading a book and implementing it, or just making these changes and doing something different in a positive way, it can be great and grandiose, or it can be a small habit that you're forming to improve things. And it comes down to just giving someone the permission. And where like I said, I come from is that I don't ever want to try to tell anybody to do something that I'm not willing to do myself, which is try to invoke positive change, whether it's small or great. Forward is forward, you know?
Yeah. And I do agree with you to some extent where you said I do agree with that 100%, where you don't have to go so far down. You don't have to be homeless. You don't have to be suicidal. But at the same time, those are the people that it's like you have a doctorate. It's kind of how I look at it. You have a doctorate in this field. The guy who, you know, like me, where I haven't gone that had to, had been down that far and had to have these thoughts and these types of things. That's like I have an associate's or a bachelor's. I don't want to go to get a doctorate, but to listen to somebody like you that can even show me preventative measures and what to look for and stuff like that. Those are the type of people that I'm drawn to. Those are the type that should have a podcast. You know, I have friends that are like, dude, I have a niece, maybe she's 20 years old, just started a podcast about, you know, the hardships of life. And I'm like, you're 20, you know, like, what have you done, man? You're not married, you don't have kids, you know? And I'm just like, all right, I'm going to leave the room before I say something.
Have fun with your podcast.
Yeah. But, you know, so that's where I'm always one of those guys where I like to find out the people who, you know, I think the ones who have been very far down in whatever, you know, to lose 60 pounds and be over 300 pounds. Man, weight for me. So, you know, I became financially free at 36. Weight for me is 10. I was telling my wife the other day, it's 10 times harder for me than money. to control my appetite and control all that stuff, to go and try to, it is constant, not visualization. What's the word where you're vigilant?
Yeah.
Vigilance. It's,
you have to be on top of it constantly.
Yeah. And so to see all these, I mean, it's just cool to see somebody that's fixing so many facets at the same time, that it's like, man, it's inspiring.
Well,
and
it's
that,
kind of,
that.
And I appreciate that. And this is the best way I know how to put it, is that when you, and this is speaking from, I mean, like I said, I have a coach I work with, and he's an ultra marathon guy. He just runs, he runs ridiculous amount of miles. He did the Hurt 100 in Hawaii, and he is a guy that has, I mean, he's really good buddies with Trevor as well. I need to get you probably connected with him, but
Cool.
he gave me permission to choose myself. And then for so long, he just telling me, like, he's like, it's intoxicating when you start improving your life. And he's like, and it's not selfish, because when, of all the little time that I had when it came to prepping for this marathon, it's a couple miles here as you're training, but then as you get closer to the end of the marathon, there's days where you're hitting a 20-mile run in prep, and you're getting up to 40 plus miles in a week that you're running in prep for this marathon. That takes a lot of time. I mean, a 20-mile run is hours and hours, especially when you're a big guy who's never ran before. You're not doing that in 3 hours. You're doing that in 5.
Right.
And my wife had to be on board with that. And then it hit a point where she saw what I was trying to achieve, and she made time. She like sacrificed time of, like, normally, okay, you're normally going to help me with bedtime, but, like, hey, I didn't hit my run today. I have to hit this. I have to treat this training guide like a Bible. And I'm tearing off to go hit an 18-mile run at 9 o'clock at night because I forgot. And so it's intoxicating when you start choosing yourself, because then other people realize that, like, oh, he's improving his life, and I want this for him as well. And this is something that I've recently learned as I've been improving my life and everything like that, is that they say that your mind your mind and your brain control the rest of your body. Well, what controls your mind and your brain is, and the more I've gotten into the understanding of in science of gut health, and I started eating as perfectly clean as I can on top of all this a couple months ago, my mental clarity and my mental fog and just my energy level and all those things, I'm realizing, like, man, there's just so much that we do on a daily basis that just brings us down. And that's the joy in all this, is that if you find one thing and you improve it, and then you feel like you've kind of mastered it in a sense, that you've made it a new part of your personality and your habit, you're like, all right, what's next? And then you kind of, and then you hit this level of authenticity that you kind of start separating yourself from the negative side and the negative people that are kind of like, oh, they're just, it must be nice to have this, or, oh, they're exhausting, they're too much. And it's kind of like, I can't come down. Like, I can't afford to go back to that place, because that place was dark and it was sad and it was suicidal, and I can't go there. So one of my favorite quotes was from a guest that we had on our podcast. It was, I don't know if you know Zachary Levi from Shazam and Chuck and a couple other TV shows. He's a celebrity that we got to interview. There's a huge mental health advocate. Yeah, and we got to fly out to Hollywood last November and sit down with him and have him on our podcast.
All right.
And he said that when you've been through the flames, you have a moral obligation to take buckets of water back to those who are still in the fire.
Ooh,
and so it's like, when you've been there, when you've been drowning, you feel like you have to reach back and pull the next guy up, and then get him to where you're at, and then he will turn around and pull the next guy up, and woman and everyone else in your life. And so that's where I kind of come through this, is like, I'm trying to continue to better myself, because I enjoy grabbing people by the shirt and being like, come over here now. Like, it is so much better on this side, and it's going to take a shit ton of work to get here. But as soon as you get here, you're going to be like, oh, this is what I've been missing. This is happiness. This is fulfillment. This is, and then that way, when those dark chemical times do come, when those triggers do happen, when the sky is blue, but it feels gray, you have things to fall back on. When you have these moments of clarity, we're like, okay, I don't like this character that we're playing right now, but I know that this isn't forever. I know that I will come out of this, and I know that life, like, you have these memories and things to fall back on.
And relationships.
Relationships.
That's the biggest one, is a text or a call. Hey man, hey Logan, I'm having a dark day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's hey man, hang in there. It's going to pass, go for a walk, whatever you can give them advice of what you've been there.
Yeah. Or go grab a burger at 2:00 in the morning with them if you need to. Like you'll be tired the next day, but you'll still have your friend. Sometimes it's that, and sometimes it's that simple.
Yeah. That's when I first came to start M42 Adventures. I knew I wanted to take people on adventures and get them outside. And I thought that it would, it would make them happier. And then I wanted to help them with their finances is what I'm good at. I'm the mentor for finances in the Genesis. And I went to Ryan, and Ryan's like, dude, I love the idea. I want to be involved. I want to be a partner. And I'm like, sweet, that's good. I've got a mentor as well. And he says, you got to start a podcast. You got to start. My social media for the first 7 years of my travel was private, and he's like, you got to go public. You got to get on the microphone. You got to talk. You got to let people know who you are. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to do that. And he said the same thing. He says, you owe it to people. If you really want to help them, this is how they're going to find out. And I'm like, oh, and it's been amazing. It's been a beautiful thing overall, and being able to talk to amazing people like you is the number one. I tell everybody for me, it's like, this is selfish. This is something where I want to go on these adventures. I want to make new relationships.
Yeah.
I was out out of Hawaii this year, and Chase was there. We had Trevor Farnes. We had Hush, Hush, the Hush guys, Eric Chesser and Casey, and then Ben Diamante with Shed Crazy. And anyway, all these really good fathers, dudes, just people that I want, my circle to expand around. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, this is amazing. This is why I did this. And it was a lot selfish, but if everybody buys into it and everybody joins and comes into these different types of, listens to your podcast or mine, they can get that too. Yeah. And like you said, it's hard work. It's effort. It's, to be financially free took me, almost a decade, but if I can do it, you can do it.
Well, they say that the best way to heal a sick dog is you put him in a healthy pack, right? Like it's when you surround yourself with other people, especially like you said, the brotherhood aspect. You surround yourself with other men who are trying to build themselves, higher, and they're trying to lift other people along the way. You inevitably are going along for the ride. They say that, if you hang out with 4 millionaires, you're inevitably going to be the fifth. Or like if you hang out with, if you just hang out with,
4 drug addicts,
4 negative people or whatever, you're going to be the fifth.
Absolutely.
And that it is intoxicating either way. You will literally succumb to whatever you surround yourself with. Yeah. And sometimes if that's your own dark thoughts and you are stuck in your own head, you will live there until something changes, whether that is an external change or it is internal change. You are the steward of your life. You are a sum total of every thought and decision you have ever made. And so if you are at a spot in your life that you do not like, you are the only person that's going to change that. And if you are waiting for someone else to do that for you, it will never come. And so
I was one of my stories was when I was 24 years old. And Chase knows this, he's heard it, and me and Chase, we actually ran around in the same circles, but we never met.
Yeah. Weird.
He's best friends with one of my best friends. And I'm like, how did that happen?
Like, man, where were you? Time. Yeah.
But he knows a lot of these guys. And I was at a house here in St. George. I'd talked to my dad and I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere. This was a house of like drug addicts and alcoholics. And, luckily I didn't get into the drugs much. I tested a few and tasted them, but drinking and stuff a little bit. And I remember going to my dad and he's like, you can't fly with the eagles if you run with the turkeys. And we just had a big party at the house, and I woke up one morning and I was like, I got to make a change. And I didn't. This was, 20 years ago, so it wasn't as prevalent for me to really, there wasn't as much of this talk and conversation going on. But I remember waking up and there's beer cans everywhere and drugs all over, and girls passed out and guys passed out. And I woke up and I'm like, today's the day. And I walked around and I literally went around and kissed my buddies that were passed out on the couch and, and kissed them on the head and says, man, I love you. And I always tell people, I had a girlfriend at the time. She ended up being my fiance, but I broke it off. But she always used to say, you're hanging out with bad people. And I says, these are good people with bad habits. I always advocated that.
Most definitely.
And so I went around, kissed them all on the head, you know, tears running down my face, walked out, and I never went back to that group I never went back to that house and never went back to that setting ever. And then, and now what, three or four of them work for me.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful people and they've overcome their, you know, their habits and whatever. But you're absolutely right on that front where if you're in a situation, and this is where is it Johans?
Yeah.
He talked a lot about this where, man, if this situation isn't working, whatever it is, and you're to the extent of maybe taking your life, switch it up. What do you have to lose? Just go and try something completely different. Whatever you got to do, just try to switch it up, you know?
Well, and you know, one of the things I wanted to touch on that selfish aspect is I kind of, you know, you look at it, and I think Johan's actually touched on this, but the beginning of everything in creation and in developing something new is selfish. Like 100%. That first initial step is selfishness, but the goal, you know, almost never is. Like the end thing that you're creating in which everybody else will enjoy. So you're creating M42 Adventures, selfish because you want the skills and you want the knowledge, but at the same time you're creating an environment, a community for everybody else to enjoy it. So it has its place, and really to begin things and to, you know, basically do anything in life, you know, that initial step is selfish. But the plan in general, you know, can be selfless.
Yeah, and you hear a lot, you know, it's interesting because when I go hang out with these guys like Trevor and Ryan Mickler and, you know, some of these guys that we were in Hawaii with, they all had similar thoughts. They all thought, you know, I'm an imposter, the imposter syndrome, you know, who am I to teach about this? And, you know, they all have their struggles and their problems, and as do I. And it's one of those things where, like you said, it's, you know, if there's 4 millionaires, you'll be the fifth, but they still have issues. They still have problems. They still 100%. Have, you know, and I think that's really real. I heard a little clip or whatever you call them on social media the day about it was the guy who ran Vivint. And he says, I have so many people come up to me saying, you know, it'd be great to own a company that has hundreds and hundreds of employees because I only have 10 and I'm dealing with problems all the time. And he's like, you don't think that I have problems? You don't think, you don't think Amazon has problems?
Yeah.
And I think we kind of, I really think that, you know, we all hear Jeff Bezos makes like $1 million a second. It's like, yeah, he does, but I guarantee you they have thousands and thousands of problems that are trying to solve daily to continue to make that millions of dollars a second. And it's like, I think people think that you reach the destination and it's like, yeah, I leave Monday to go to Australia. We're going to go travel for another year and we're going to be gone. My family of 6. And it's like, you know, I still have all these issues, all these concerns and all these, like, it's life.
And sometimes the problems can't all be solved all at once
100%.
or all at the same time.
Yeah,
some of them got to get kicked to the back burner. I mean, like I said, majority of the time, right? And I love what you were saying before, Chase, was that's literally our slogan for Dad, Bods, and Beards is that it starts with you. Like it has to start with you. Nobody is going to come in and like someone might pull you out of the flames a little bit, but you've got to take the actionable step after that. And so there is this level of which, you know, podcasts like yours and ours and things like Trevor and all that stuff, it still frustrates people and pisses people off because of their mindset. They're looking for someone or something to come in and save them, or they're waiting for this pivotal moment for this. Oh, now I'm going to do it. They're waiting for the wake up from the party moment. Some people have that, and some people, they just need to trickle into it. And it all comes down to like a level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence of being self-aware and selfish enough that you want a better life for yourself. And then in turn, like Trevor's story, I love Trevor's story, and I'm sure you've heard it, where he almost lost every single thing he had. And he had someone who came and discreetly and anonymously dropped off groceries on their doorstep. And his daughter, they have this picture of his daughter holding up a can of Cheese Whiz, and she is so excited. And that was like right around Christmas time. And he's like, why, you know, it's Cheese Whiz. It's literally fake cheese in a can. But to them, it was food that they didn't have, and they almost were losing everything. And now that he's built this massive, amazing company, Mountain Ops, they pack meals for kids and for people who are struggling. Hunger. So he has turned around. I've been a part of so many Conquer Hunger events, and it is so fulfilling because there's a man who has taken his biggest and most broken moment and probably very emasculating of somebody else feeding his family. And he's turned it into something that he's now doing to just impart that same goodness and
paying it
just
forward.
and paying it forward. And that's where, like you said, it started in a moment of selfishness of I've got to do something better for me and my family. And now that he has built this massive, machine that's probably still full of problems, he still turns around and tries to pay it forward. And that's where I say it's all about intentions, and that it's he built this company for his family and for himself to be able to have security and happiness and joy. But then is like, I experience so much joy and happiness in my life now, I can do more with it. And then it's not so much this like eat the rich mentality and of like, oh, we got to cut them all down. It's like, yeah, there's some evil people in the world, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that have a lot of power and good in their corner, and they do a lot of good with it. And I think it all just comes from these moments where we see in ourselves that we're worth the change, and we're worth the drive. And that, I've written letters to my younger self, and there's so much power in that. And I've done meditative and even ketamine therapy work where I have laid my former self to rest and had conversations with him and saying like, look, you did your part. You got us to this point, but I am a different guy now. You can rest. Like, and it's like not a like killing them off in a like, punishment sort of way, but like, hey, buddy, your part is over. You can sleep now.
There's no more use for you.
It's okay. Me and the future me, we're going to go forward. Your story ends here, but I will still forever honor you and respect you for what you had to put up with to get us to this point. So that's,
and I always look at it like chapters.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
It's 100%. Like you were chapter 3 and I needed chapter 3 and unfortunately, but now I'm on chapter 7 and I'll never forget that chapter, but I'm going to close that chapter. I'm going to go on and we're going to keep writing the book. And I love it, man. Yes. I love it. Do you have anything else, Chase, to add? I know you've kind of dealt with a lot of this stuff.
Most of this, for honestly, when he talks about bringing back water, I was on a conversation with my sister when I was coming back from Hawaii, when I got, stopped on Maui for like
flight was
2.5 hours or something like that. And so I got on a phone call with her for 2 hours and we were just sharing information back and forth. And she just kind of told me, quietly, she's like, you're meant to, like influence the world. And she's like, through your story. And she's like, and it's all about how you deliver it, and it's a lot like, what Logan does. And she's like, you can deliver that type of pain softly. She's like, that's how you are. And she's like, you can give that to people in a way that a lot of other people can't, and I have experienced a lot. I have, attempted suicide. I have, dealt with addiction and a lot of different things in my life. And my childhood was really rough. And a part of me has always just been like, hey, that made you who you are, and like, enjoy it. And a part of it's kind of like this aspect of, be the lighthouse, like just embody what you have learned, and people will learn from you, but it's not always that easy. They need to know the context and everything behind what got you here and how much work it really took, because that's a huge thing too, is you can give people information, but they got to know that it was years and a lot of failed tests and little things, because it doesn't work the same for everyone. You know what I mean? And so I'm really inspired by everything that Logan's talking about to kind of like bring that water, if I can find a way to deliver that message in a way that's going to be very receivable for a lot of people, and they can take some of my own experiences and learn something from them, then, by all means. And honestly, I didn't think to get on this podcast. I thought it was gonna be a little bit more lighthearted, because Logan and his buddy are always doing funny, things. And I didn't dive too much into what they talk about on their podcast. So, I mean, this definitely hit some different areas, but it gave me a good kind of like idea. And, I might hit up Logan and find out, what they do and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, if you're in a position to give back and to change lives, and it's, I with my kids, we around Christmas time, we go around and, pass things out to less fortunate people now that we're in a better position. Yeah. And it's funny because my kids, will go to the store and buy some stuff, and they'll go give away a toy, and they come running back to the car and they're just smiling and they feel good. And it's like, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those things where if you're doing it for you and it helps others, it's a win-win. Why not? And so there should be no shame in that or guilt in that.
And there's a definite benefit, for me sharing. Like that's something it's while it's painful, like it's a release, like you're sharing with, people that are going to understand, but at the same time, you're just kind of like letting it out, talking, and I've been through a lot of therapy and it's always with somebody that's like an unbiased person, but just having that reflective aspect to kind of everybody and, have gone through that trauma. That's something you don't want to have to go through. You know what I mean? And so
I tell my mom all the time, cause again, I have never had a suicidal thought, never.
Yeah.
And I tell my mom all the time, and I tell my wife this, I says, I pray that our kids have this wiring or this chemical makeup to have that, because you see people who are struggling with this, and I do believe that it's not necessarily their fault. It's not, it's chemical. When something is chemically off, how can you blame that person for that? It's like,
and I look at, I look at people on the side of the road that they're homeless and they're maybe battling with different, I mean, we've all seen, in different big cities where somebody's talking to themselves, right? That was almost me. 100%. I am grateful that I had the people in place and the opportunity and the insurance in place and things like that to get me the help that I need. And that was very much so almost me. I was talking to things that weren't there, but I also had a white collar job and I had this beautiful little family. And so it wasn't as bad. Like it didn't seem as bad because I wasn't homeless, but had that been existing or continued to happen, I could have ended up in that spot. So I have a little bit different of perspective or empathy for those people now than I used to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes you so, qualified to talk on stuff like this. And for me to listen, because
thank you.
I always tell people, my chemicals may go out of balance, tomorrow, and I may be in a whole different mindset and a different position and different, world that I haven't faced. And that's where, people like you that, have these conversations and put your, I always tell, like Ryan, he's been doing this for 12 years, something like that, 13 years podcasting. And I'm like, man, good on you to just, one, take the time. All of our time's important. Logan, you're on here donating, an hour and 20 minutes of your time. Time to me is everything. My mantra, my social media used to be one life, so live. You get one life and it's like, try to make the best of it. And, and so for people like you to actually do and not just say and make the podcast and go all in on it. And, if there's anything we can do to help or be a part of it, I leave Monday and I'm going to be gone for a year.
Oh, wow.
But Chase is he's the CEO of M42. He'll be here every day, all week long, here in Southern Utah. So if you guys ever want to collaborate, I've got a really amazing ranch down here in Southern Utah.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to do, some retreats or anything.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. We actually have a big event we're putting on in Florida next week.
Awesome.
With I don't know if you guys know who Justin Danger Nunley is on social media. He's the guy that's like, listen, did you know? And he shares a random fact. Yeah. Dude's got like millions upon millions of followers, and he's a veteran. Yeah. And cool. We're doing a charity beard and mustache competition in Pensacola next Saturday.
I love it.
And it's all for veterans and first responders that struggle with PTSD. And we're working with an organization that supplies service dogs to those individuals.
Nice.
And then at the very end of this competition, because Justin and I go back and forth funny and stuff on TikTok, and he's shaving my beard off at the end of this competition.
I was just about to ask you that.
Yeah. I do that about once a year, and it goes like hundreds of millions of views.
That's a year? That growth is a year?
With a trim about every 8 weeks. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Mine's like 4 or 5 months, and
if I sneeze, it gets longer. So
that's rad.
I got all the Viking blood right here, but I'm still 5'10", so I didn't get the height.
Yeah, I love it.
We've got all kinds of stuff. We're gonna do a 5K on the anniversary of the night, the 8th anniversary of the night that I disappeared. So we're gonna be reclaiming that 5K that I ran and turn it into
that's cool.
Positive thing, and the anniversary in October. And so
is that
we're inviting
up in northern Utah?
It'll be up here. It'll be up here somewhere in I guess we are in northern Utah, huh?
Yeah.
It's and we're gonna be inviting
us, you are.
Yeah, and we're gonna have the police officer that saved my life. I've stayed in touch with Katie. I've introduced her to my wife and kids and stuff now, and so there's just all this stuff that we want to do. And so there's a million things we could probably do with you guys as we're trying to continue to do
cook
this
as well. So
yeah, Chase is a professional.
Put together food
chef
for an event as well.
Yeah. Let's stay in touch because it's not a competition, and the more we can
100%.
lift everybody up,
100%.
I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I started a clothing line in 2012 called Undaunted Apparel. It's still in business down in Vegas. It's more screen printing embroidery now because the brand didn't really take off, but we donate 10% to military. I had the idea in the hospital when my first son was born, and I'm like, my dad was in the military. He passed away at age 28. And so that's very near and dear to my heart, but we've been doing that for 13 years now and donated, just lots of stuff to veterans, first responders and stuff like that. So it sounds like we're, cut from the same cloth and have the same values. So if there's anything you guys want to do together, again, I'll be gone. Chase knows how to reach me. You can reach out to me on social media as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's, like you said, let's team up, partner, whatever we need to do to just, carry the torch and change lives.
People helping people. It's a beautiful thing.
How do people find you, Logan? Other than that, so let people know how to get hold of you.
Me personally on social media, if you just look me up, Logan Petersen or just Logan Pete, that's my main channel I do is Instagram. I kind of dabble in other stuff. But then the podcast and the social media associated with it is just Dad Bods and Beards. We know it's a funny name. It was intentional because most guys have dad bods and, beards of some sort. And, but yeah, that's where you find us. And we do the podcast weekly, and it's anywhere you can listen to it, or you can watch it on Spotify or YouTube. So
nice.
Awesome, man. I love it, dude. I appreciate you doing what you do, and best of luck. Likewise. Keep fighting the fight, and we will as well. And if you ever want to come out on one of our adventures, like 100%. I said, do you hunt at all? Do you hunt ever?
I don't, but Trevor promised me when we first met him that he was going to take me. He was going to be like, oh yeah, I'll take you somewhere and we'll go hunting. So
Trevor's
yeah.
Well, maybe I'll try to get you in. Yeah, we do one in Hawaii that's invite only, and with like Trevor's coming next year. He's already coming, and I've got 2 spots.
You can
open.
invite me to Hawaii anytime you want. I will not say no.
So. It's awesome, man. It's archery hunting, so it's bow hunting. But we had 2 guys come this last year that had never, shot a bow. They were just brand
Colin
new.
was one of them, wasn't he?
No, Colin. It was Kip.
Okay.
And then Seth was actually the year before. But
I can come just for comedic relief. I can just come and hang out with you guys and just make everybody laugh while you guys hunt. I'm good with that.
No, dude, you come hunt, man. We'll get you in on it. With this one, there's no pressure. It's the perfect introductory hunt. I will tell you that. 100%. Cool. It is. You can shoot 7 animals because they're invasive, and there's thousands of them and stuff like that. So there's. It's the perfect one. So I'll reach out to you on that and see if you want to come. And
100%.
And like I said, Trevor will be there. Ryan Mickler. A lot of these people in the same. It'd be it's a good. I do that one just for networking.
It's like a men's health hunt.
Yeah, it's invite only, and we're very, very, very specific on who we bring. Just trying to have a really good. If you're in Hawaii for a week, basically camping. There's a little lodge, but it's pretty rustic. But it's healthy, man. It's changed my life. It's the one I look forward to the most. So I'll get you the details on that, and appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, back at you guys. It's a pleasure. Man. Thank you.
Thanks, all right, brother. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. So there you have it. Awesome conversation with Logan. I can tell we have a lot in common. I actually, when I hit stop on the podcast and we're going to wrap things up, I continued to talk to him for another 30, 40 minutes off air. And just a wonderful person. I can already tell that we are, kindred spirits. We got a lot of the same, similar situations and things like that. And so just great conversation, great person that I'm excited to know. Again, I tell people this all the time. The best part about this job and this movement that we're doing here is me getting to talk to amazing people that can give me good insights into their respective fields. So if you want to check out Logan, again, you can find him on social media, all those things, Dad Bods and Beards podcast on all the platforms, and check him out. If you guys are struggling with any of the things we talked about in this episode, reach out. Don't, like we said, be selfish and try to get out of the situation that you're in. You can't do it alone, but at the end, it's going to fall on you. So make the call. Don't be a sayer, be a doer. It could change your life and the people around you. And I want to thank Logan for his time today and a great podcast. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.